Come on into the building, family. We got a good one today. I'm interviewing politician James Torrance. So come on into the building. Let's get it in.
Let's talk about it.
Show will start in 1 minute, 30 seconds.
Real truth and power. Health. Wealth. Knowledge of self. Uplifting the community. Let's talk about it.
Show will start in 30 seconds.
Uplifting the community. Let's talk about it. Real truth and power. Health. Wealth. Knowledge of self. Uplifting the community. Let's talk about it.
All right, welcome to the Real Truth and Power. Welcome to Real Truth and Power Live. Let's start the show.
You are now tuned in to Real Truth and Power, the show that uplifts the community with health, wealth, and knowledge of self. Here's your host, Everett Winchester.
All right, again, welcome to the Real Truth and Power Live podcast. We provide health, wealth, and knowledge of self. We got a very important show today. I am going to be interviewing Brother James Torrance. He is running for City Council in Baltimore City. Just to make a short, brief statement on how this started, my dear brother Donald Malcolm Smith shared some information on the brother. And I went in on Malcolm. I was like, hey, what's the brother's game plan? Is he trying to change? Is he going to make some changes? And the brother popped up on the Facebook, hit me, gave me his number, said call him. So I was really impressed. Of course, we have a lot of issues in our community, and we have to make our vote count. I don't care if it's Democrat, Republican, black, or white. We need people that's going to make changes, especially for the black community, that's going to take our vote and give us something in return for our vote. So I went in on the brother. The brother was definitely knowledgeable, and he wanted me to interview him. So I got him on hold. Let's bring him in right now. Brother James Torrance, again, he's running for City Council in Baltimore City, 7th District. So I want to show him some love. Let's bring him in. All right. Well, I'm blessed to have my brother James Torrance on the Welcome to the Real Truth and Power Live podcast. Please introduce yourself to the people and tell them a little bit about your background.
Hello, everyone. I'm James Torrance. I'm a son of Baltimore through and through. Grew up in Latrobe Homes, lived there until I was 25, now 33. I live in beautiful Ashburton in Baltimore City. My wife and I have a son named Jace. We're just a family of public servants. My wife's a nurse. I went to law school here at the University of Baltimore, work in city schools, doing policy work every day for our children. Man, listen, my life is all about the people.
Well, I'm glad you allowed me to interview you. I always tell people, I think Sean Puffy Combs said it best, we got to get something for our vote. So I just don't want people just voting for familiar names and stuff like that. I want them really to know who they're voting for and, what they're going to get for their vote and the game plan behind it. Speaking of voting, we're in some unprecedented times. Talk to the people about the process of voting right now, how they can vote, what's going on, because I know we're not going to the polls.
So we're not going to the polls right now. One of the things that's happened is that we got our ballots. Well, some of us got our ballots already. They were mailed from Minnesota. They are sent to every active, let me emphasize this, active voter. So you voted in the last 3 primaries. If you voted in one of the last 3 primaries, you're an active voter. So you're going to get it. But if you haven't, I express this sincerely. Go to the Board of Elections website, request a ballot, register to vote by May 27th. Why? Because that means that you can get a ballot. Once you register, you can request one via email. Like, people didn't know they can request a ballot by email because they know it's a short turnaround time. And then there are drop-off boxes in Baltimore City with several locations on the Board of Elections website. For the process for everyone like you and I who are getting their ballot in the mail, so it's going to come in the envelope. It's going to have your name on it, have a barcode on it. The barcode is important. Make sure you immediately open it and return it. One of the things is that it's going to have instructions. The instructions are going to tell you that you're going to need a black ink pen to fill out the actual ballot and bubble in each selection for president, Congress, mayor, city council president, comptroller, and then city council. And then on the back of it is going to be all of the delegates for the Democratic convention if you're a Democrat, and the same if you are a Republican. Same thing.
So I wasn't aware of that. So you're saying if, especially the young kids now that are just recently graduating, if they're just turning 18 and they're registered to vote, they may not get that kit, that package in the mail.
Exactly. So, and the other piece is, if you're 18 by the general election, you can vote in the primary.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
So if you got a student home that's 18 before November, I believe November 2nd, don't quote me on it, November 2nd or November 3rd, it's one of those days. Okay. Make sure they get registered and then make sure they vote. Because the thing is that I tell people this all the time from working in politics, people pay attention to those who vote. And I hate to say it, some people don't serve everybody, but they'll look up your voting record and say, oh, you vote often, so that capital, your vote is your capital. I remember my grandmother used to instill in me that she grew up in Jim Crow, Baltimore. She went to Dunbar High School, the black high school for kids who were college bound. Let that sink in. The black high school for kids that were college bound. There were only 4 high schools that we could have went to.
Right.
And that was one of.
I'm glad you're flowing on that. I want to get into education in a minute, but of course we're in some unprecedented times, and I know you're running. For those that don't know, talk about the office you're running for.
Yeah. So I'm running for city council. I tell people city council is this legislative body of the city government. So one of the things is that they do 2 things. One is help with constituent issues in their individual districts. It's 14 members of the council. The other piece is that they do oversight for city government. So when your water bill's late, there's issues in maintenance issues in our housing, there's issues with renting, all these things that government is keeping an eye on, and there's something that's out of control, down to your streets. That's your city council person. They're there to have oversight over these agencies and be a check to the mayor's office. So a lot of people in Baltimore don't know that we have a strong mayor system. The mayor is the chief executive, so they're in charge of the entire government. But they also control the budget. The budget is an important piece. A lot of people don't know this. If the mayor submits the budget, the council can only cut it.
Right.
So when you are active and you're being and you're supporting your council people, you got to have people who are willing to say, hey, mayor, we need these things. These are the priorities for our district. These are the priorities for the city. And start having people who are willing to be able to say, I'm ready to negotiate with you on what this looks like. I'm willing to be a partner with you on what this looks like. And if you don't understand that, it's going to be hard, because often people don't know that the city council's role is limited, but there's opportunities where you can do some structural changes, especially if you're noticing there's issues in the tax sale system. You can file either a resolution asking the state to actually do something for you, or the federal government to do it, or recognizing that this is an issue to do a study, or you can do an actual bill and actually say, hey, I'm writing a law in an ordinance in Baltimore City that will change this system. That way it's done. Or you can sponsor a resolution and say, hey, I want to leave this up to the people to make this decision, and I'm going to offer this actual resolution to say we need a charter amendment. A lot of people don't know by July 1, we have to have all those resolutions for charter amendments to be passed. because now those charter members are important. So one of the things is that they wanted to take it from a 4/5 majority to overturn the mayor's veto
Mm-hmm.
to actual 2/3. So you're talking about an opportunity where it doesn't take all 12 members of a 14-member body to agree to overturn the mayor's veto.
Okay.
And
Go ahead.
I just nerded out on you.
All right. All right. So let me get into it a little bit. Hopefully I don't give you anything too controversial. First of all, let me ask you about Governor Hogan. Before you answer, I'm going to ask you a twofold question. How do you think he's doing during the pandemic? I believe he's doing a good job. But at the same time, I understand that he vetoed the plan this month to overhaul a law that's supposed to help the school system, and proponents said it would fix generations of inequity, and he blamed it on the pandemic, but people are saying that he was against, the bill or the law being pushed earlier before then. What are your thoughts on that? Because and then we can get into the school system a little bit. So how do you think he's doing, and what are your thoughts? Are you aware of that bill?
I'm aware of it. Kerwin is a big push, my brother. It could have been a serious change for Baltimore City. One, it was twofold. It was investing in early childhood education, teacher training, as well as thinking about what does it cost to teach a child in poverty?
Mm-hmm.
Let that sink in. What does it cost to teach a child in poverty? In Baltimore City, we have over 120 schools where our students are in poverty.
That's crazy.
Think about that. And the fact that when we look at it, and the state's own needs assessment, in their own document, they admit that they underfund Baltimore City Public Schools by $190 million a year.
Run that back. I lost you there. Say that again.
The state's own document, in their own assessment for the needs of how much it costs to educate a child in Baltimore City, so they underfund us $190 million a year.
Wow. Now, let me ask you that, because I've heard, and someone sent me something recently. It was a census from the Census Bureau or something, and maybe you have more input. It was saying that Baltimore City had maybe Maryland, but Baltimore City included, had one of the largest fundings for the school system. But I'm not seeing that. And I often hear we need more. Do you feel coming in there's a misappropriation of funds, or is that not true?
No, that's not true. Listen,
Okay.
You can actually go on the city schools' website. They're the only city agency that regularly gets audited every year.
Okay.
They get audited by the state. They get their own internal audits done, and they also have independent auditors actually review their processes. Okay. And that's unique. Right. The other piece is that you're talking to how much we get per student, right? But a lot of people don't understand within the funding for education, mm-hmm. that there are restricted funds. So for a student who has an IEP, there's a restricted fund to pay for that restricted teacher for these restricted materials. And then everything like for our federal dollars where it goes to teacher training, that's restricted. So you get it based off of like the population of your students and how much you can spend it on. So when people say like, oh, you have all this money, but this money has ties to it. This money has purposes to it that we did not do. So that's one of the things people have to understand, like certain things are funded and certain things are not funded. And one of the things is that when it comes to like special education, unfunded mandate. I can tell you from even, the federal government gives like a grant for like $70,000 for homeless students.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Okay. We have, I think in city schools, we have like 2,700 homeless students, right? Mm-hmm. We're spending over $10 million just to educate them.
Wow. Let me ask you, what do you think, because you from Baltimore Public Schools as I am, and I'm going to let you know, as I got older and I had kids, I just didn't want to send them to public schools after elementary. Not just because of the education factor, because of the distraction factor. I mean, I want them to go to a place that's safe. I want them to be comfortable. I want their train of thought to be focused on school as much as possible. What do you think some of the major issues are with the Baltimore City school system?
I don't think it's issues.
Besides the funding.
I think it's more so making sure your student goes where they have an interest. And I say interest because my nephew is at Margaret Brent. They have an arts program. Their arts-focused instruction. Make sure your child goes to a school where their interest is met. You know how we graduated from Carver.
Right.
You went in there, you're focused on your trade. You know you have your interest. You're interested in it. So the things is make sure your child's interested in the actual curriculum. You can send them to private school and they not be interested and fail out. And I think that's one of the hardest things is that educating a child is different now because there are so many things pulling them in their interest.
Mm-hmm.
And I say this often is that in pre-K through fifth grade, you have no choice but to learn.
Right.
In middle school and high school, you have a choice. So that's where that thing about exposing your child to make sure their interests are met means important because you're making sure they're in the right high school, the right middle school, and that keeps them on track because these are the things that you got to learn. And I think constantly it's hard because now parents are home with their children, so they're learning more about them. But you also are understanding that you got to make sure they're interested because they're spending 7 hours a day in this one place opposite you for a whole 5 days a week. So 35 hours.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a job for them. So, and you know, if you're not interested in your job, you're not going to perform well.
Right. Right.
And the other piece is that we're not thinking about poverty and how that affects children in Baltimore City and the fact that I grew up in Latrobe. There's days where we went hungry sometimes. So like if you're not being nurtured, you're not getting that food that you need. Those things factor into how you learn. And we're not even talking about just the nuts and bolts of like, how do we make our education system better? How do we make our children better? It's the question we need to think about. Because if you're in a school and your classmates are hungry, of course they're not going to focus on learning. Or if your classmates homeless, they're not going to focus. Or you're in a house where there's domestic violence, or you're in a house where you just saw someone get murdered. This is why we talk about trauma-informed care, trauma-informed instruction, social and emotional learning, and understanding helping kids process these feelings. And then when positive behavioral interventions, because often we always say, yeah, you remember you grew up and your grandma was like, yeah, you just mischievous, right? Mischievous versus bad.
Right.
Two different words.
Mm-hmm. Right.
One says that like you like to get into things. Bad means like no one wants to deal with you. So, and when we start thinking about the lens in which we approach our children, that's when we change minds and hearts.
Right. Right. Now I want to get into some other things. I was checking out your website. You were talking about improving city services and public safety. I think you were stating that residents deserve efficient, effective, and responsive public service. Can you go into that a little bit for me?
Yeah, my brother. So this is one of those things that living in Baltimore City, neighborhoods get treated different by city services.
Without a doubt.
And for me, and understanding that this district is very diverse, to give you an idea where our boundaries are, the district is northernmost boundaries is across the street from Poly and Western. So that's Hamden, Medfield, Holmes Heights, Woodbury. You go as far south as Sandtown, Winchester. And in between that, you're hitting Reservoir Hill, Ashford, Arkansas, Raleigh, Penn North. And then you go west, you're in Walbrook Junction, you're in Hanlon Park. You're in different parts of the city with different things. We have different classes of Black and brown people. We have different classes of white people. And we have different classes of other people in this district. So thinking about how those things intersect in those services. If you saw a few months ago, the Sun did an article about the closure rate of actual alley cleanings and other services in the city. Mm-hmm. South Baltimore, the Canton area, credit to Zeke Cohen and his team, had almost 100% closure. Areas in this district had like 20%, 10%, 15%. In other portions of the district, like 30%. So how do we look at where the failures are in the systems by looking at the data to say that, hey, we're falling short. Systemically, right. We're falling short. How do we make sure that we move our crews and the services that we have to fill in these gaps and these needs? Because one of the things that we noticed is that during this pandemic, they stopped actually mowing the medians. And one of the things that I heard from a lot of people throughout the district is that they started seeing rats come out of the medians. That high grass, rats in the daytime coming out in Baltimore City because the medians haven't been cut. And those are contracts that we're doing, not actual city employees actually cutting it. Those are contractors performing the duties.
Now it's interesting that you said that. Who is there a system breakdown? Let me just be direct as possible. You know, as the community, and hopefully I'm speaking in a positive direction for them. They're losing faith in our public officials. You know, because of things like that. What do you say about that? Do you think in general there's a need for a lot of changes? What is your plan going into make some changes into those certain areas?
So for me, my plans is being honest. One of the things I would love to see if the city had an ombudsman's office, so where they're taking the complaints of citizens as well and saying, hey, we're noticing from the data as well as anecdotally that this is an issue across the board. So how do we recommend policies to the city council and the mayor to fix this issue? And then you still have your council services where they're taking care of the constituent issues as well. So it's twofold. So you have people who are deep in understanding just the agency within itself and advocating that people get their services right. And then you have the council office thinking about having those collective minds together, noticing these problems. How do we solve it? And for me, the data tells the story. One of the things I tell people, like my parents are returning citizens. My mother and my father both did time and for the various narcotic crimes, right?
Okay.
Both never graduated from high school. When I think about them and I look at the numbers for returning citizens, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Baltimore Sun said that over 80% of the murder victims of last year were returning citizens.
Mm.
Nearly 40% of them were shot before.
Are you serious?
Yes, 40% of them were shot before.
That's crazy.
So what that tells me is I can pretty much use the data to target who I think would be the next murder victims in Baltimore City.
Right.
So how do we treat it? So one of the things I say, we treat it like this. You see that returning citizens is a major issue. Why not create an office for returning citizens in Baltimore City? Focus on getting them connected to services, getting them reconnected to their families, and also get them connected to jobs and things that deter them from, I hate to say it, I don't say drug dealing, I would like to say an economy of survival, because the thing in Baltimore City is people are surviving. So how do we get you and change your mindset so that you're not trying to survive in a way that then ends up with us spending more money to incarcerate you, when we could be spending that money in the community and allowing you to become a taxpayer?
Right. I want to go into that a little bit. We're both from Baltimore City, both went to the same high school, Carver High School. Talk about the drugs, the crime, and what's your opinion on how we can get that under control a lot better? I believe personally that a lot of the issues is a lack of businesses, a lack of teaching our youth the role models of small business owners and we're majority Black that are Black. The lack of leadership from community leaders to give them a different direction. But talk to the people just about what do you think that our city officials can do and some plans that we can implement to fix this, because the issue now is what changes are going to happen. It's been going on for too long. Somebody has to go in there and be a shaker and make some different changes. What do you think can be done?
So for me, it's real clear. So one is we got to be twofold. We know that crime, we have to prosecute people. That's one thing. Mm-hmm. But the other piece is we got to prevent the act. Crime is just a symptom of poverty. And we got to really go back to what is causing this person to enter this lifestyle. So from talking to kids who are like squeegee kids, some of them are adults. This is not a problem that just started. It's been like that for a long time. We've had squeegee kids since I was a kid, and I'm 33.
Right.
So this is something that is systemic that we need to really have that conversation. Not asking how can we get them off the corner, ask them why they're there.
Right.
And when you often ask why they're there, I can't find a job. My family desperately needs this. Or have we even noticed the fact that sometimes they're even intoxicated or on drugs when they're doing these services? So they know the dehumanization that they're going through just to do this.
Yeah, that's a good point that you mentioned about that. The lack of jobs, the lack of the drug crime is sometimes I think maybe they think it's a way out. On the squeegee kids, though, there's been a lot of complaints. I've even heard it on the radio. What are your thoughts on that? Would you like, if elected, would you have some? Maybe we used to have something called, but I don't know, can't remember what it was, but they would help get kids jobs,
Mm-hmm.
Programs like that. What do you think? Because from what they're saying is the squeegee kids have been a little more aggressive. and frightening people.
And this goes back to that intoxication, these traits, right?
Right.
Because if you are intoxicated from alcohol or drugs, you might be more aggressive. You never know what that means in terms of your social, emotional, psychological needs, right?
Hmm.
So I think one of the things is getting them off the corner means that giving them opportunities. And opportunities means mentorship. Opportunities means connecting you back to educational resources, especially if you're under 21, let's get you back into Baltimore City Public Schools so you can get your diploma. If you're over 21, let's find you a GED program or a program that gets you that graduate equivalent so that you can get back on track with things and get jobs. The other piece is, how do we offer you something that's transitional, that gets you income, that motivates you to come every day,
Hmm.
and you get these skills? And I think that's thinking differently. It's not just simply putting a police officer on the corner and making sure that you don't stay there. That's
Right.
a waste of resources. That's a waste of time. I'd rather help you than to me push you into a prison cell or fine you to death, and then you're trapped with excessive fines and court fees for the rest of your life. Because I've seen some of my students who are on probation for stealing an iPhone from somebody who are still on probation 3 years later, because you're still paying $50 for probation every month to supervise you, and then you're still paying restitution on an iPhone, which may have been $1,400.
Hmm.
And if you already came from limited means, it's going to be a while before you pay that off.
Now I wanna get into because I'm a business owner and we promote small businesses on Real Truth and Power. And please, for everybody that's tuning in, please hit that like and share button. If you're on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. We got to get this information out to the people. On the count of three, hit the like and share. 1, 2, 3, bam. I appreciate you. I want to talk about some small businesses. And I like I said a little bit earlier, I think it's very important that our youth even see business owners as a role model instead of the drug dealer. But we have to have some incentives to help the small businesses promote more business owners and things of that nature. What are your plans on small businesses and those issues?
So for me, small businesses is really a good subject for me to really think about. One of the things is that the city expanding ways to think about the city can do micro lending to small businesses. So if you recognize that we need some small businesses, some corridors where we have main streets where there's going to be traffic, why not figure out ways to bring them to there? How about giving them some grant money to help them with getting equipment or hiring individuals? These are things that just thinking minutia and thinking small. The other piece is I see that Philadelphia helped out a lot of corner store owners because they wanted to desperately put fresh fruits and produce in certain communities. So what they did is they provided a grant for actual shelving and refrigeration so that they can provide it. Because right now we're seeing that small businesses that are corner stores are being rubbed out by the dollar stores who are starting to start up a lot more into our community. And they're providing us less options at a cheaper rate.
Right.
Less healthy options at a
I
cheaper
got
rate.
you. Mm-hmm.
And I think that's one of the things, is thinking deep and think about how we connect people, or the fact that how do we connect incubators in Baltimore City, like a Coppin State, to Black businesses in Baltimore City? How do we make sure that we're educating people on the procurement process, the documents for it? How do we make sure that we figure out the city government can make exceptions on the insurance requirements for some of our small businesses? Because often, if you're a small business, you can't afford $2 million in insurance.
Right. Right. Right.
It's
Yeah.
real.
Yeah, I know, trust me. I know insurance and workers' comp and all of those things that you don't ever think about until you become a small business owner.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard, it's hard to stay legal and hire employees and make all of that stuff happen. So you did touch up on that. That was definitely good. Go ahead.
It's all about educating people. And also for me, one of the dreams of mine is creating a school on entrepreneurship in Baltimore City.
Okay.
Because I take my cousin who has been in the game before, who never got his high school diploma, but knows math better than me.
Right.
Has a better hustle than me. So thinking about it and the fact that the skills are there, how do we use and hone them to make you even better? And also expose you enough that you can capitalize off the knowledge that you just gained.
Right. And I'm glad you said that because I'm a strong believer in pushing entrepreneurship. I even tell people like, man, just try to start a business, even if you fail. It might not. And I failed at a lot of businesses and then I hit one that works and then I try to keep starting them. I think it's very important, even for our economy, to have small businesses. I think that is crucial. So I'm glad that you mentioned, you were saying something, just elaborate a little bit more about trying to start a school for entrepreneurship?
Yeah, so one of the things I would love to do is do like a middle or high school for entrepreneurship. One, because you get a business track in a trade school, but what about teaching you how to do your business plan, thinking through and helping you with actually building a product? These are things that like you can really invest in children for, especially I think about the kid with the bow tie. Imagine if he was able to come up with this idea. We provided him the resources so that he can actually explore it and actually provide that real life instruction safe in the safety of a school so that you can learn that way. And then when you want to take it out there and actually multiply, you have the skills. The benefit is seeing you blow up, but the benefit is seeing you do well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that I just think that if we start, supporting our small businesses and promoting them, I think, it could be a huge difference in the Baltimore City economy. I'm just a really strong component of entrepreneurship.
Look at all the small businesses that started are now big businesses like Under Armour. Under Armour started in a garage.
Right.
Literally, Apple started in a garage. So think about what we can do from just your basement.
Yeah. I want to talk about the rec centers a little bit. For those that don't know, I'm a co-founder of a basketball program in Baltimore called Team Rumble Basketball. And I coach football throughout. So I'm heavily involved in, the rec centers and things of that nature. I guess we can always ask for more funding for everything, but what are your thoughts on the importance of the rec centers? I know they did extend them for 7, and I think it was 5. They extended maybe to 7, but just in general, keeping kids off the street, getting them involved, not just in sports, but other things that the rec center has, dance, maybe having more funding for music and like you said, even classes, entrepreneur classes and things of that nature. What are your thoughts of funding for the community centers and the importance of them?
So one of the things a lot of people don't know is that Rex and Parks budget has been stagnant for the last 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Providing all these services, rec centers are stagnant. They're trying to build new rec centers. They actually have a strategic plan which has dollar signs attached to things to make people understand, like, you want this, there's a dollar sign attached to it. Exactly. But the other piece is that there's two competing interests in terms of recreation in Baltimore City. There are people who love parks. There are people who love recs. I think there are a lot of recs and a lot of parks. Mm-hmm. So how do we merge those interests together and start fighting for joint resources? Because instead of just getting a grant for one piece and not the other piece, why don't we do joint endeavors together? And I think that's one of the things. The other piece is looking at how do we create recreation in the 21st century? So one of the things is that there are like outdoor recreations that other cities have done where like they've pop-up recreation centers. That's one of the things too. They'll go to certain communities and spend like a week or 2 there to do recreation. The other piece, I've never heard that. It's like mobile rec centers. They just drop in, put their equipment down. They even have like little bike paths, everything, little skateboard paths, all that.
Wow.
Little workout, exercise, all those things. Thinking about how do we do this in a reasonable way. One of the things is I would love to see if Recs and Parks would probably bring back. Remember when Recs and Parks had the weight gyms?
Yes.
Imagine if you had a gym membership that generated revenue at a rec center. So you had a section where you can do your weightlifting and everything that's affordable, that you can go to, that's generate revenue. And that's the thing, is figuring out ways that recs and parks can generate revenue and build off that revenue to create more opportunities in our centers. Some of our centers need to be badly renovated, redone. We also need to think about what does programming look like. My nephew's recreation is not my recreation. I love football. I love playing basketball when I could. Mm-hmm. I remember Coach Murdoch told me down at Thomas G. Hayes that football is your sport, son. Basketball is not. That was the best thing he ever told me, because you know what? Listen, growing up in a family of people who play basketball, I was short.
Right.
I'm 6'1" and I'm short. So listen,
Right.
I'm done. You
Well,
can have it.
that's good. That's a good guard size, but I got your message. I got your message.
Listen, I'm not that as coordinated. Listen, I have one speed on fast and C. That's it.
Right.
And
Go ahead.
and for me, I think that recreation has to be thought about differently. Like there's some kids who are interested in actual gaming. Gaming is a different way of recreation.
Yes.
And thinking about what can we offer for gaming. There's actual tournaments where kids can make money off of just being a gamer. Or thinking about one of the sports that's been flourishing in Chicago right now is rugby. So
Oh, right.
doesn't really need an actual recreation center. It needs like a park, being at a ball. That's it. And some goalposts. Right. That's it. But thinking about where the interests are of the students, and that's why I like the Rex and Park strategic plan about getting reinvested and interested in what they can do.
Right. I'm going to stay on topic a little. I'm not going to keep you much long. I got a couple more questions. I'm going to stay on topic a little. We talked about the rec centers. There's a different kind of center that's similar, but not, and it's community centers. And I had a lot of people asking about community centers, feeling we need more, not just where the kids can go to maybe play sports or just stay off the street, but maybe the adults, a computer lab, elder can go. They can have bingo and stuff like that. And they were saying the lack of community centers or the lack of funding for community centers. Have you ever looked into that? What are your thoughts on the importance of the community center?
So one of the things is it's twofold. So we have these opportunities with these 21st century buildings being built by city schools and thinking about how do we create the opportunity to make them community centers and community focused and open. That's one fold. The other piece is looking at where we have old buildings that have now been turned over to the city. How do we use them appropriately? Like Northwestern is, after cross country moves out of Northwestern, the building's going to be vacant. Think about it. Lake Clifton is vacant and turns back over to the city. What can we use them for?
Right.
Think about how we process them. Like right now, some of those schools are actually up for sale. So thinking about how we use those resources, where do we put them, where they desperately need it, but also thinking about where can we bolster some of those rec centers to create those community centers,
right?
Or the fact that we have some senior facilities that have not been used, like with the Waxman Center that hasn't been used as often. My grandma used to go there play pinochle.
Right.
So how do we start thinking about what this goes back to the whole recreation and the interests of communities, because different people have different interests. There are some people in my district that love biking. There are some people in my district who love walking, running, jogging. I personally love the park that was across the street from my house over in Hanlon. They tore down all the trees. That's why we moved here. We love the trees. We thought about having been able to take our son there and just have him play. Thinking about those things that make families want to be in Baltimore and thinking about what does it look like. The other piece is I drive through the district. I don't see that many playgrounds.
Yeah, right.
So I'm trying to figure out, like, how do we add more playgrounds? Because that's something that I struggle with, because how can I have a family and not have a playground?
Now, in some parts of the city, do you think it's not good to put playgrounds? And let me go a little deeper. Because you mentioned playgrounds. Let's talk about the safetiness of Baltimore City, the safety of Baltimore City. I know you touched up on the crime a little bit, but I mean, it's dangerous out there. The murder rate's high. Every time I get an alert on my phone, somebody shot. What do you say about that in terms of people feeling safe and improving the safety of the city? Because I know you have good ideas, but going into office and implementing them, it's a little different.
Yeah. So one of the things is just that I think about safety. I think about how do we support constitutional policing that then get good arrests, that then get good prosecutions, and we get sentences that matter to us. And this is where my legal background goes. So I understand one of the things that we're in this district about is police training. So how are officers trained to do proper Terry stop or when they stop you? Certain questions can invalidate the entire arrest. If I touch you the wrong way, can invalidate the entire arrest. Like digging in your pockets right without questioning you about where you're going, all these other things.
Right.
Or not answering a question. Often a lot of people are like, well, you didn't ask me where I'm going. you're not asking me legitimate questions. One of the questions I often don't see people ask, and that bothers me, is asking or actually answer is, why did you stop me? If someone can't articulate why they stopped you, that is a problem within itself. So get ready to think about, what does that look like and how you're going to report it.
Right.
Because when someone can't say that, they may not have a truly legitimate reason to stop you. The other piece is thinking about, how do we support the police department to this? I remember back when I was in the mayor's office, one strategy was putting cadets on corners that we knew that people sold drugs from. It allowed them to interact with the public, its visibility. And then if you put enough out there and strategically place them, you force people to sell drugs in an area where you can actually surveil them. And because you can surveil them, you then have a clear vantage point where you can actually record the actual buys happening. And then the other piece is like in Chicago, they actually use money. I hate to say this out loud. They use money that they take out with the actual serial numbers, and they do controlled buys where they will actually the cops will actually go buy the drugs from you. Buy enough to make sure that you run out of drugs, so you have to re-up. And when you re-up, that money then transpires to another piece of hands, who then is recorded again. So remember, this is clean money. Right. Your prints are just getting onto. The next person's prints are getting onto. So not only can they say you were a part of this transaction, they actually have the actual fingerprints to prove it with money that they can trace. And then take it even deeper. Once you deposit said money into said business that you may be money laundering through, we now have the business. So now we have the person who, it's a street level person, the mid-level person, and then now we have the distributor, or the person who's actually making the money off of these drugs. So we're going above the ground. Mm. And that's how it has to be strategic. It's going to take long-term cases like that to start disabling a lot of the networks that we have in Baltimore City. But that's why we have to support a police commissioner like Harrison, who's done this in New Orleans.
Mm-hmm. Now, you have faith in that commissioner?
I do. Okay. I mean, listen, bro, they're officers in... actually, one of my opponents is driving by right now. Their officers, New York, put it like this: New Orleans had, when Harrison took over, just recovered from Katrina. He was in their police department, a long-term person in that department, in leadership. Okay. They also are still recovering from their own consent decree. This is after we found out that officers took Black and brown bodies underneath bridges and shot them during Katrina.
Yeah.
National scandal. You're turning this department around, body-worn cameras, training. Every officer has had in-service training to change their behavior, because often we're talking about a behavior in a culture. Whenever they say culture, they really mean behavior. They're trying to retrain you to do something different.
So you do have faith in them. That's interesting. That's good to hear. I want two more questions, because I don't want you and your competition going at it.
He's on the sound machine.
No, you good. I want to ask you one thing in particular, because and we touched on it a little bit. I want you to talk to the people about them believing that you're going to go in there and make change. A lot of people are saying, here goes another politician. They say the good things. He sounds good or whatever, but once he gets in there, nothing's going to change. Nobody's going to see any change. Talk about why we should believe in James Torrance and that you're really going to make a change.
Let me tell you, I was raised by Thelma. Thelma is my grandmother. My grandmother told me two things: get your education, and when you go places, you bring others. That's what I've been fighting for all my life. I grew up in Latrobe Homes. I can tell you my actual address, 929 Abbott Court. And before that, I lived in 1101 McAleer Court. And I can tell you that I didn't leave 929 Abbott Court until I was 25. I got 2 bachelor's degrees and a master's degree while I was in 929 Abbott Court.
Wow.
And for me, I've seen the changes. I've lost family members to Baltimore's violence. For me, I've been behind the scenes. At 22, I became a chief of staff for a state senator. I worked in the mayor's office doing cleaning green in Baltimore because I wanted to see my city cleaner. I wanted to see community gardens in my city. So in this race, I'm the only person with a track record that you can successfully see. I fought to have our alma mater remodeled. You remember what Carver looked like. You see the
Right.
Carver of today.
Yeah,
I
I did see
remember.
some. I did see him working on something. Yeah, I need to go stop up there.
You got to come by. You got to go there, get one of these shirts. It's senior week too, y'all. Say,
Uh
pay attention to the class of 2020. They
oh.
they got robbed. They got robbed of prom. They got robbed of
Yeah,
graduation.
that's terrible.
It is. I mean, there's nothing like sitting out on the hot Carver fields for graduation
Yeah,
in your blue or white gown,
yeah,
praying that the speaker doesn't speak too long. But you know one thing, but you know what it feels like at the end of the day, how it feels to leave there. You understand that you're on white field, and that once you leave white field, that's your last time with your classmates sometimes in the same room.
wow.
But one of the things I want to say is that for me, if you look at my track, I'm about where I'm about. So I've done work with Out for Justice because my parents are returning citizens. My story is connected to all my service because there's something in my background that connects me to each thing. Like I was homeless before. That's why I feel strongly about providing supports for women and children who are homeless. Because often when you think about homeless shelters, they're only for men. There aren't that many shelters for women. There aren't that many shelters for children and families. So thinking about it, for me, I want to tell people that I'm going there to ask why. Because often we don't ask why. Like a lot of people don't know, DPW, Department of Public Works, is a self-sustaining agency. Let me repeat that, self-sustaining. That means that they bring in their own money, get no budget from the city. They do projections on what their revenue is. That's like me asking my grandmother how she going to spend her $5. You
Wow.
need someone who's willing to go into City Hall and say, how are you spending your $5, Grandma? I know that you are getting this $5. I don't know where it's coming from, but how are you getting it? Is it reasonable? What are you spending it on? These are things that we have to have those conversations. And I think often what we've lacked is opportunities for oversight in the city. And thinking about like the Department of Public Works can provide data and say, oh, this is the affordability rate. Nah, bro, I pay $90 a month for water in Baltimore City. Of that actual bill, $21 of it is consumption. The rest is fees. So how are you spending this infrastructure fee? And how is it being used? What is your strategic plan about that fee? Or then the other piece is, what is the payment that we're getting in taxes from Baltimore County for their infrastructure fees for the water that they get from us? How are you using that? Where are you using that? And that's where I think that's why that by itself, we're just asking those questions is how we change city government. Because if we're just like, oh, I'm going to fix it, how are you going to fix it if you don't understand it?
Yeah, you are correct. You are correct. You are definitely correct. Well, I want to thank you, man. It was just a blessing, and for all those that don't know, I told the story before you came on. Somebody shared a post of you, and I just got in on him. Like, man, what's this brother's game plan? Does he have a game plan, brother? You talk about support this guy, and you hit me up. And you was like, hey, call me up. I'm willing to talk to anybody, and I have so much respect for you for that because I knew you just wasn't on the politics. You was really trying to be sincere, just give your point of view and talk to people. And I think that just made me really respect you and get to research you and know you. Just closing out, just any message you want to tell the people or anything you want to get across to the people?
Definitely. If you know any family members or friends that are in the district, please have them get in contact with me. Their vote matters. I'm willing to listen. I'm willing to talk, take questions. I'm a firm believer in being accessible because the thing is that I can't just show up to your door and ask you to vote for me without actually having that conversation with you. I want you to look me in my eyes, whether it's FaceTime or over the phone, to ask me those questions. Some people have asked me, how do I feel about bike lanes? How do I feel about violence in the city? How do I feel about one of the things someone asked me was like, how do you feel about actually having people get represented with council and rent court? I was like, that's a smart idea. I looked at the Able Foundation study. The idea says that it saves the city $30 million. To spend $2 million to actually help you to get a lawyer in the actual process. And for me, it's just thinking about what's smart and what matters. And I'm willing to take your phone calls. You can call me at 667-217-2811. Again, 667-217-2811, or email me at james@jamestorrance.com. And it's TORRENCE. Listen, I'm about it. I wanted people to call me, talk to me. The thing is I've been calling voters, having conversations with them. Because the thing is that I'm a son of Baltimore. I've lived in the best and worst parts of Baltimore. And I say that because I've seen how people are treated. I can see that just when I was leaving out of my house earlier to
Hmm.
go get something from the store, the supervisor for DPW for the trash collection was riding down the street and pulling up our trash cans because they were in the street. They were left over, or they left trash in some people's trash bins. Why can't we get that quality of service in every neighborhood?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I appreciate you again. And you have a weird district because, like you said, people don't. I don't think people understand how diverse it is because you got kind of like the Gilman area, right?
No, so it
That's a
goes.
little out.
It's a little out. So like
Okay.
literally, you know where Roland Park is, like
Yeah.
Roland Avenue. It ends at Roland Avenue in the northern section.
Got you. Got you. Okay.
But in terms of like it's a weird district. So like
Yeah.
Park Circle is a part of a portion of Park Circle's in it. We
Hmm.
have Woodbury, that area. We have Hamden. We have Medfield. So everything.
Hamden Medfield. That's very diverse. I see what
I
you're
mean,
saying.
listen,
Right.
I got a guy who voted for Trump voting for me because he knew that I cared about Baltimore. And the fact is that across the district, there are people who are worried about being priced out of their communities. That is endemic all over the place. But also, a lot of people think that Hamden doesn't have drug issues. They have one of the highest overdose rates in the city right now.
Really?
Yeah, it may
Wow.
not look the same as what an open drug air market looks like, but they still have the same issues, and that's the
Yeah.
conversation I'm having with people across the district. That's why people across the district in different neighborhoods are
A lot
supporting
of
me.
opioid abuse over there,
Yeah,
probably.
and the
Yeah.
thing is that these issues affect us across zip codes, across street boundaries. It's about how we attack this together.
Yeah. Let me close you out on this. How do you feel President Trump is doing right now? What do you?
There's a president.
Yes.
Now, listen. I'm gonna tell you like I
Be
told one of
careful. Be careful.
I'm gonna tell you like I told one of my supporters who's a Trump voter in Hamden. I pray for the president because if he's unsuccessful, that means things will spiral down to me. And I say that because we are in it together, despite people's biases, despite people's unwillingness to see things from other people's viewpoints. The tribalism in this country is real.
Mhm.
But one of the things I tell people at the end of the day, when the market crashes, it crashes for all of us. It
Yes.
may affect us differently, but it crashes for all of us. And I
Yes.
think that's where people are starting to see this. And I think one of the things is that, and granted, I love President Obama. I disagreed on him on drone strikes, but I knew one thing is that he, even though he did not win votes from certain communities, he still advocated for them. And that's the same thing for me. So when I win this election, I'm claiming it. If you didn't vote for me, I'm still going to represent you.
That's
I'm
right.
still going to bring you that quality services. I'm still going to say that I am representing you because you are my boss. I'm employed by you. And I think that's one of the things is that this president is missing, that we employ him. I
Yeah.
pay higher taxes. When he changed the tax rates, I paid higher taxes because you cut off my charity donations, brother. I can't take off as many write-offs as I used to. And it's just been real. Like, we all are suffering through this pandemic. I know some friends who were making like $150,000, lost their job. Now they're like, I have student loans. I got to figure this out. These are the things. And for me, like even in this presidential race, I'm supporting Joe Biden. I'm taking the same rational doubt who I know, despite may not agree with me on every issue, there are people in us that can force him to somewhere meet us in the middle to get the things that we need. And it's not going to be perfect. And I think that's where we need to get away from that tribalism.
Yeah. Well, I know I'm praying that you get in there. Good luck to you. But I'm gonna be on your heels if you get in. I'm gonna be asking for some changes. I'm gonna be
Well,
put.
you have my
I'm
number.
gonna be calling you. Hey, brother.
Listen, you have my number. Listen. I told people in my first 100 days, I want to have town halls. I want to talk to you about the issues that are happening in your community. I want to make sure that when you call the offices, you get a tracking number from us so we can track how we're handling your constituent services. Because the thing is that at the end of the day, those numbers are what I'm measured by. Because if I haven't changed anything on behalf of you in 4 years, you have the right to fire me.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And just to let you know, I think people want change. I think people want, I
They
don't
do.
want to say youngness, but they want freshness. They want somebody we just need something new energy, new people that want to do something, man. That's me personally.
Mhm.
I mean,
That,
but it's not working. Whoever's doing what they're doing, it's not working right now.
but it's also changing the dynamics of what the city looks like. For me, I want to see some charter amendments that put the council on equal footing with the mayor, because often we don't think about how the power is concentrated in the mayor's office too.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if we can share some of that power and have those checks and balances, imagine the things that we can get done in the city. Or imagine the fact that if we're having those open discussions about tax incentives that are given out to people in the city, how are we making sure, like, if I offer you a tax incentive, how many jobs are we getting from this tax incentive? Because we're losing taxes. Like, I think we're going to pay off Raven Stadium in 2026.
Really, that fast already? Gee, I'm getting old.
No, but the thing about it was built in 90. The money came out in 96. In
I
96.
mean, just the time
30 years
flies by.
later.
Yeah,
That's
that's
30
30
years
years.
later. That's 30 years of taxes that we weren't collecting directly into the city,
Right.
into the state. Think about it. So
Yeah.
how do we use those things? If we're going to give you this long-term benefit, how do you benefit as well? Like, that goes back to those conversations. Like, if you're developing an area, can you build us a community center? Can you pay for a rec center?
Yes. Yes. Well, you've been flowing, Brother James. I know you're busy. I know you got a lot of work and calls to do, but I just want to thank you for allowing the Real Truth and Power Live podcast to just help you get your info out. And if you win, I'd love to have you come back and just talk to the people, man. Just let them know what you're
I'll be
about.
back.
Then. And
I'll definitely be back.
I appreciate you, man.
Hopefully I'll have a haircut because
It's a struggle. I cut my own hair. I do an awful job. My headline sucks, so I don't have that to worry about. But I want to thank you again. Thank you so much.
Thank you, brother. Good meeting you again.
All righty.
Bye-bye.
All right, man. Shout out to Brother James Torrance. Remember, your vote counts. He is running, if you're in the Baltimore area, he is running for city council in the 7th district. And it was a positive interview. He spoke on a lot of views, and he also said you can call him. You can call him. You can email him. His website is jamestorrance.com, as you can see over here. So, the brother did great work. So I appreciate everybody for tuning in. Also, check us out on YouTube. We're at YouTube at Real Truth and Power. And we're also on YouTube at Collect the Black People Movement. You got to go to that YouTube. They're about to blow it up with a lot of different people, a lot of different shows. It's going to be like a powerful new black network, man. So you want to subscribe, hit the alert bell. They're going to have a lot of different shows on. We're just blessed to be a part of it. And we're one of the first shows on there. There's going to be a lot of other shows. So I definitely want you guys to go to Collect the Black People Movement on YouTube. Also, we're on Africa TV under Everett MW, I believe. Africa TV. We're all over the place, so definitely follow us. If you like podcasts, you can check us out on Apple. You can check us out on Spotify. You can check us out on Google. So definitely, please support this brother, James Torrance, if you like what he says. But if not, just make sure you vote for somebody you trust. And please hit the like and share. Let's just get the information out and let the people decide. I just want to say thanks again for Brother James Torrance. Again, if you're in the Baltimore area, he's running for 7th district. So please support. And I also want to say thank you, you guys, for supporting the podcast. Is doing well. We're all over the place. So if you're looking on Facebook, you may be catching us on YouTube, Africa TV. Man, we're all over the place. I can't even remember. So we're just blessed to keep it moving. We're just blessed to Daily Motion. We're just blessed to have our platform out there in so many areas. And we're getting little bits of people from each area, and that's making it a blessing. So please, again, share the information. Hit that like. Hit that share button. And I'm blessed. We are out of here, man. Thank you again for tuning in. What a powerful and great show. And again, Collect the Black People Movement. Check us out. That's going to be phenomenal. phenomenal network on YouTube. They're about to blow up. So if you're not aware of it, definitely hit me up too, realtruthandpower.org, and I can give you all the information about it. Peace and blessings. Hotep. Learn yourself.
Real truth and power, health, wealth, knowledge of self, uplifting the community. Let's talk about it.
Great show, great show.
Real truth and power,
Hotep.
health, wealth, knowledge of self, uplifting the community. Let's talk about it.
Thank you for tuning into the Real Truth and Power Live podcast, where we promote positive energy to uplift the black community. Let your voice be heard.
Real truth and power, health, wealth, knowledge of self, uplifting the community. Let's talk about it. Real truth and power, health, wealth, knowledge of self, uplifting the community. Let's talk about it. Real truth and